Nanopadivashadeva, Nanopadivashadeva, Jati varnashramadayah, Jati varnashramadayah, Ātman-yaropitasto ye, Ātman-yaropitasto ye, Rasavarnadi bhedavata, Rasavarnadi bhedavata. Good. Nana upadi vashat eva. Nana upadi. So here the word upadi is being used for body. Nana upadi vashat. Due to the presence, due to the existence of many individual bodies, as a result, jati varna ashramadayah. As a result of that, there are many jati, birth, varna, the common translation is caste, literally means color, ashrama, stage of life. These are words that refer to just the ordinary details of life. You're born into a certain family, jati. That family might be from India or from some other country. So there's varna here in the terms of color. That body might be white in color. That body might be brown or tan or yellow or black in color. Varna can mean color. Ashrama, stage of life, young, old, etc. So conditions of birth, conditions like nationality, conditions like stage of life, young and old, all of these belong to the body, do they not? When you say, I am young or I am old, you're using the word I to refer to your physical body. Look at this common confusion. On one hand, you say, I have a body. On the other hand, you say, I am young or I am old. But oldness and youngness belong to your body. There's some confusion in our language, not surprisingly, because there's confusion in our minds. If there's confusion in our minds, obviously it's going to come out in what we say. Look at this. Age, color, nationality, etc. belong to the body, undoubtedly. Do they belong to consciousness, the essence of who you are? What color is consciousness? Your body has color. Consciousness has no color. What about the birth of consciousness? Your body had a birth. Your body has a birth date. A birth date and a date of expiration, like the objects in your, like the foods in your refrigerator, used before, date of expiration. Your body has a date of expiration. Your body has a date of birth. Your body has a date of expiration. Not Ātma, consciousness, unborn, uncreated, unchanging, eternal. And your consciousness is neither young or old. Body has age, not consciousness. But we have this common confusion where we say, I am young, I am old, I am American, I am Indian, I am white, I am brown, I am black. This confusion. All of these attributes belong not to the true I, consciousness. All of these attributes belong to this upadi. Nana upadi vashat. Due to the differences of our many physical bodies, we have all these different avidyā at the end of the second line means etc. So due to the differences of our many bodies, there are many differences like nationality and age. There are many young people, many old people, many Indian people, many non-Indian people, many just different kinds of people. But all of these traits, like young, old, American, Indian, black, white, brown, all of these attributes, Ātmani āropitaha. Third line. All of these attributes are āropitaha, superimposed. Here we can have a one-word translation. Āropita means superimposed. Just as potness is superimposed on clay, in the same way, young or old is superimposed on consciousness. I, as Satchidananda Atma, I am neither young or old, but I superimpose the age of this body on consciousness which has no age. I superimpose the color of this body on Satchidananda Atma, pure consciousness, which has no color. I superimpose the nationality of this body on Satchidananda Atma, which has no nationality. This is superimposition. All of these traits that belong to your upadhi, your physical body, all of these are āropitaha, superimposed, ātmani. Again, I'm breaking up the words. Superimposed on Atma, which has none of those traits. And Śaṅkara gives another drishtanta, another metaphor. Just like rasa varnadi, rasa, let me go back up to the end of the first line. Toye. Toya is water. Toye. Upon water, bhedavat. Upon water are superimposed differences which bhedavat, which appear, superimposed traits which appear different. And what are superimposed are rasa, taste, varna, color, adi, etc. So the metaphor is taste and color. When you drink water, that water can have taste. It can be sweet, it can salty. Sometimes water is salty. So that water has taste. The water also has color. Sometimes it's colorless. Sometimes if you take it out of a stream, it might be colored. It might be brownish. Or sometimes if you pour food coloring in it, you can have green water or blue water. But what happens to the water? Remember your science, H2O, water, remains H2O. Whatever is the source of the sweetness or saltiness is separate from the water. The color is separate from the water. The color and taste of water, which is separate from the water, belongs to the impurities. The taste and color of water, which belongs to the impurities in that water, those traits like taste and color get superimposed on water, which is tasteless and colorless. On tasteless, colorless water, attributes of the impurities are superimposed. In the same way, on pure consciousness, the attributes of your upadhi get superimposed. And just to make it very clear, this is not a mere philosophical observation. This teaching has tremendous, tremendous consequence. And here's why. The color of your body belongs to your body. The age of your body belongs to your body. It doesn't belong to you. Here's the problem. When you superimpose the age of your body or the condition of your body, when you superimpose it on yourself, the consequence is the problems of your body become your problem. So my body is aging rapidly. It's true for us all. But if I superimpose the age and decay of my body, if I superimpose it on me, then I am aging and decaying, which doesn't sound very good. If I am aging and decaying, that's terrible. If my body, which is separate from me, is aging and decaying, that's normal. What a different perspective. If age and decay belong to my body, that's a natural fact of life. But if I superimpose the age and decay of my body on my true self, Ātma, which is not aging, which is not decaying, but if I make this error in thinking and superimpose traits of my body on Ātma, then I end up unnecessarily owning the problems of my body. Problems of my body are a fact, and I have to, I have to take the body to the doctor's office, etc., and take care of it. But if those problems are, in American English, they like the word internalized. If these problems are internalized, if these problems are taken to affect me in an essential way, then I suffer. And this is how Vedanta can help free you from suffering. When you recognize that the problems, we just end with this another metaphor. The problems of your car, automobile, belong to your car. The problems of your house belong to your house. The problems of your job belong to your job. The problems of your spouse belong to your spouse. Problems of your parents belong to them. Problems of your children belong to them. When you can discover that none of those problems belong to you. Problems of your body belong to your body. Problems of your mind belong to your mind. But the essence of who you are, consciousness, is utterly independent of all those problems. None of those problems are your problems in an essential way. This discovery gives you tremendous inner freedom and inner peace. This is how Vedanta frees us from suffering. Anyway, let us continue today. To introduce the next verse, very interesting situation. The problem of suffering doesn't belong to Ātma. We said the problems belong to your body, the problems belong to your mind, and as we said right at the beginning of this text, Ātma has no problems. Your body and mind have the problems. And for that reason, it's worth our effort to understand the body and mind in some more detail. A little bit like a physician, actually a medical student who has to study anatomy. Now, anatomy is necessary for a medical student because all the problems take place, the problems they treat, the illnesses they treat, take place in the body. Since the locus of illness is the body, the medical doctors have to study and know anatomy very well. Here, since the locus of the problem of suffering, since the locus is the body and mind, we had better understand the body and mind in some more detail. We're going to see a series of 3 verses in today's class. I'm pretty sure we'll get through all 3. In these 3 verses, we're going to break down the body and mind into several components for the sake of understanding. Just like an anatomy book gives you pictures of each and every part of the body, here we want to differentiate certain aspects of our own human existences. In particular, first of all, the word we're going to use for body, the Sanskrit word, is sharira. There are several words we could use. we're going to use the word sharira here. And interesting choice of words. The root meaning of sharira comes from that which is undergoing decay. That which decays is sharira. The other common word for body is deha. And deha comes from another root. They say dahana yogya. That which is fit for being burnt is your body. So this is the view through the lens of language that your body, sharira, is constantly decaying, and it is a deha, it is fit for burning. Not a very optimistic point of view, but certainly true. We understand that. Now, this term sharira, body, is divided in a threefold way. Let's go through this. These are the three verses we're going to see. This threefold division of sharira, body, into stula sharira, physical body, sukshma sharira, subtle body, and karana sharira, causal body. And we're going to see each of these in quite a bit of detail, one verse devoted to each of them. Just a quick word on translation. When we say stula, I translate it as physical. In Indian English, it is very common to say gross body. I have to tell you this funny story. When I was a young American student studying this Vedanta for the first time, and reading all these books printed in India, and when I saw printed in the books, gross body, you understand, of course, in American English, gross has a very, very different meaning. So I was wondering, what's gross about the body? Anyway, gross body means physical body, that which is tangible, that which you can see, hear, taste, smell, and touch is your stula sharira, physical body. Sukshma, subtle, specifically means intangible. If your stula sharira is that which is tangible, physical, sukshma sharira is that which is non-physical, intangible, and we'll see that in just a few more minutes. Finally, the karana sharira, causal body, which we'll discuss later. Another problem with these books printed in India, pardon me for making a point here, but I find it very amusing how causal body in so many books, not just one or two, many, is misspelled not as causal body, but casual body. So imagine me as a young student, I'm reading about the gross body, and then I'm reading about the casual body, and I got quite confused, I think. Anyway, just a comment about translation. So we are going to see in these three verses, stula sharira, physical body, sukshma sharira, subtle body, and karana sharira, causal body. Let's see the verse 11. Repeat after me. Panchikrita mahabhuta, Panchikrita mahabhuta, sambhavam karma sanchitam, sambhavam karma sanchitam, shariram sukha dukkhanam, shariram sukha dukkhanam, bhoga yatana muchyate, bhoga yatana muchyate. Good. Start in the third line. Shariram here means the stula sharira, the physical body, which is in the final line, uchyate. It is called the bhoga ayatanam. Ayatanam, locus, location. The locus for bhoga. Now, bhoga can mean enjoyment, but in a broader sense, it means experience, all experience. So your shariram, your physical body, is the bhoga ayatanam. It is the locus of experience, the experience of what? In the third line, sukha dukkhanam. Experience of sukha, happiness, pleasure, dukkha, pain, suffering, and everything else. The locus of experience, and therefore the locus of suffering, which is why we're performing this analysis. So your physical body, shariram, is the bhoga ayatanam, the locus of experience. And going up to the beginning of the verse, it is panchikrita mahabhuta sambhavam. That's one long compound word. Your physical body is sambhavam. It is born of mahabhuta. Some of you know that expression, mahabhuta or mahabhuta, fundamental elements. In ancient times, they had a understanding of the world that the physical world consisted of panchabhuta, 5 elements: space, air, fire, water, and earth. So they envision the world as being made of these 5 elements. The world is made of 5 elements. Your physical body is made of 5 elements. Mahabhuta sambhavam, born of 5 elements. And one more adjective, panchikrita, literally means made 5-fold. And this has to do with, we're talking about ancient physics. So in ancient times, they understood the world in terms of 5 elements. In ancient times, they also understood how these 5 physical elements came to be. We have a model of 5 elements. We have another model called panchikarana. Panchikarana means making 5-fold. And how they envisioned the creation of these 5 physical elements is they said that there were precursors for the 5 physical elements. The precursors were 5 subtle elements. We have physical elements, space, air, fire, water, and earth. We also have subtle elements. We have stula bhutas, physical elements, and sukshma bhutas, subtle elements, non-physical elements. And in the vision of the ancient rishis, they understood these subtle elements to be the precursors for the physical elements. These 5 subtle elements, also same, space, air, fire, water, and earth, but not as physical elements, as subtle elements, as sukshma bhutas. These were the precursors for the physical elements, and they had a very complicated teaching. We're not going to go through the details of it here. It's not helpful. But they have a teaching that describes how the 5 subtle elements go through a process of recombining with each other. And when these subtle elements recombine with each other in a 5-fold way, 5 gross elements, 5 stula bhutas are born. I'll say that one more time. We could spend a whole class going through the complicated way that they described it, but we're not going to discuss it, not necessary. But it's important for us to understand that in the vision of the ancient rishis, in this pre-scientific explanation of the world, the ancient rishis envisioned 5 subtle elements, non-physical elements, recombining with each other in a 5-fold way to give rise to 5 physical elements, stula bhutas, out of which the entire world is made and out of which our bodies are made. Okay, enough. Panchikrita mahabhuta sambhavam. Our bodies are made of these 5 physical elements which were formed through this 5-fold recombination of subtle elements. Further, Your body is karma sanchitam. The commentator says karma rachitam. Fashioned due to karma, assembled due to karma, arranged or organized due to karma. Your body exists due to karma, and pardon me for pointing out the obvious, the karma of your parents gave rise to your physical body. It's important to know, though, that karma at both levels, both at a very ordinary level, but karma also at a subtle level, talking about karma from this janma, this creation, is the karma of your parents, but there's also this karma of your past lives that determined that you would be born to your parents. And the point I'm leading up to is that your karma, the karma of your past lives that determined your birth in this cycle, your karma is intimately interrelated to the karma of your parents. You were karmically destined to be born to your parents, and it was your parents' karma then that led, your parents' karma in this lifetime, that led to your birth, specifically the birth of your physical body. This much is just to describe, just to get the big picture of this physical body. What is it? Where did it come from? Is the purpose of this verse 11. Now, verse 12 moves on to the Sukshma Sharira. Verse 11, Stula Sharira, physical body. Verse 12, Sukshma Sharira, subtle body. Pancha prana mano buddhi, pancha prana mano buddhi, dashendriya samanvitam, dashendriya samanvitam, apanchikrita bhutotam, apanchikrita bhutotam, sukshmangam bhoga sadhanam, sukshmangam bhoga sadhanam. Good. Start with that last line. Sukshma angam. Here anga means body. It can mean limb, but here it means body. Sukshma angam, the subtle body. The subtle body is bhoga sadhanam. Remember in the prior verse we had bhoga ayatanam, ayatanam place or locus. So the physical body is the place or locus of bhoga, experience. Here, the sukshmangam, the subtle body, is the bhoga sadhanam. Sadhanam means. A means to an end is sadhana. Please don't think that sometimes we think sadhana means spiritual practice. One of many meanings for sadhana is spiritual practice. The basic meaning of sadhana is a means to reach an end. So the means to reach the end, if the end is spiritual growth, then the means is spiritual practice. For that reason, we use the word sadhana to refer to spiritual practice. But the root meaning of sadhana is a means to accomplish an end. For example, your car, your automobile, is a sadhana for going to work. So you get the idea. Sadhana is a means to accomplish something. Here, the means for bhoga experience. Subtle body is the means for experience. This is a very, very important teaching. Your physical body, in the absence of a subtle body, is a lump of inert flesh. Right? You know this very well. Just we got flesh and muscle and bone and blood and fat. This is a thing. It's an inert, lifeless thing unless it's invested with a life force, and that life force has everything to do with the subtle body. A nice way of defining subtle body is that which enlivens a physical body is the subtle body. Very nice definition. That which gives life to a physical body, an inert physical body, is the sukshma sharira, subtle body, or a kind of a more grim way of looking at it is the difference between a dead body and a living body is the presence and absence of the sukshma sharira. In a living body, sukshma sharira is present. In a dead body, the sukshma sharira is absent. So a very simple definition. We'll get more details in a moment, but for right now, sukshma sharira is that which enlivens the physical body, that which converts a lump of inert stuff, flesh and bone, into a living being. It is this sukshma sharira, subtle body, that leaves the physical body at the time of death and travels on to another life. So that sukshma sharira, subtle body, which is bhoga sadhanam, that which enlivens a physical body, makes it capable of experience, the means for experience. Going up one line, it is apanchikrita bhuta uttam. I'm breaking all the words apart. Uttam, born of, arising from, bhuta, these 5 elements. But here, instead of saying panchikrita bhuta, it says apanchikrita bhuta. From the prior verse, you remember that panchikrita means having undergone this 5-fold recombination to become physical. But before these physical elements that the world is made of, before they underwent this 5-fold recombination, they existed as subtle elements, sukshma bhutas. So the precursors for the physical elements, sthula bhutas, are the non-physical elements, sukshma bhutas. Physical elements are panchikrita. They became physical through this 5-fold process of recombination. But the precursors, the subtle elements, are apanchikrita. They have not undergone this 5-fold process of recombination. They are subtle, they are non-physical, they are non-tangible. Apanchikrita bhuta uttam, the subtle body that enlivens your physical body, the subtle body that makes you capable of experience, is made of subtle elements. It is non-physical. And now we get more details, starting at the beginning of the verse. That subtle body has certain aspects, certain elements. And he enumerates these aspects, parts. The subtle body is composed of several parts. In fact, 17 parts. 17 parts are actually enumerated. What are those 17 parts? Pancha prana, 5 kinds of prana, life force. There's an inhalation, an exhalation, circulation of your blood, digestion of food, and the reverse when you throw up. Regurgitation is called one of the 5 pranas. Details are unimportant, but the life force that makes your body function is 5-fold. Prana, by the way, prana in a most general sense means life force. Yes, it can mean breath, but in a more general sense, life force. And that life force is pancha, 5-fold. So there is a 5-fold prana, life force, enlivening your body. Also, next line down, dasha indriya samvitam. It is accompanied by dasha indriya. Dasha, 10, indriya, senses or organs. And those 10 faculties, the translation here. These 10 faculties are in two groups of 5. 5 sense faculties and 5 faculties of motion. 5 sense faculties, sight, hearing, smell, taste, touch, and 5 faculties of motion, faculty of grasping, of walking, of talking, of excretion, and a sexual function. Just to identify that the subtle body is responsible for sensation, sight, hearing, smell, taste, touch, and your subtle body is responsible also for being able to move. Please, just to get a firmer understanding of this, notice you have a physical hand, but the power of grasping is quite different. The physical hand belongs to the stula sharira, physical body, but the power of grasping is quite different. You can have, if you're paralyzed, you have a hand, but you don't have that power of grasping. So this is to differentiate. The hand belongs to your stula sharira, physical body. Power of grasping belongs to the sukshma sharira. Similarly, prana, you have lungs. Lungs belong to your stula sharira, but the life force that allows you to breathe, the capacity for breathing, belongs to the sukshma sharira. Or better example, heart. In your body is this organ, heart, goes on beating. Heart belongs to the stula sharira, but the power of circulation. If the heart is stopped, blood doesn't circulate. Heart exists, but the power of circulation doesn't, because the power of circulation is different than the heart. So therefore, heart belongs to stula sharira, and power of circulation belongs to sukshma sharira. And we see this also, we have 2 more. So we have 5 life force, 5 aspects of life force, prana. We have 5 sense organs. The technical term is jnanendriya. Jnana, indriya, sense organs, organ of knowledge. And 5 karma indriya, 5 karmendriyas. If you're not familiar with the Sanskrit, just ignore what I'm saying. Some of you have some Sanskrit background. For your sakes, I'm giving you the technical terms. There are 5 jnanendriyas, sense organs. There are 5 karmendriyas, organs of action. There are 5 kinds of prana. That's 15. I said there were 17 enumerated here. The last 2 are manas and buddhi. Manas becomes mano due to some grammar rules. Manas, mind. Buddhi, intellect. Buddhi is intentional mental activities. When you choose, when you make a decision, when you deliberately think about something, that is buddhi. Manas would be unintentional mental activities. An example of an unintentional mental activity is emotions. You don't choose to feel happy or sad. So emotions belong to manas. Any unintentional, unchosen, uncontrolled mental activity, those belong to manas. Mental activities that are controlled by you or chosen by you belong to buddhi. So this gives us these 17 factors. This is a modern metaphor I find so helpful to understand the relationship between stula sharira, physical body, sukshma sharira, subtle body, non-physical body, and Ātma, consciousness. The modern metaphor, I'm quite sure the ancient rishis would have used this metaphor if computers existed in ancient times. Obviously, there were no computers in the age of the rishis, but nowadays, everyone uses computers, so you're all familiar with the terms hardware and software. You know these terms. Hardware is your physical computer. There is a box. If you have a desktop computer, there's a box. Inside that box are various components. One component is called a power supply, which I suppose is like your physical heart. The metaphor here is comparing the hardware of your computer is like your stula sharira, physical body, and the software in your computer is compared to the sukshma sharira, subtle body. Allow me to develop this metaphor. Very, very helpful. Your computer has hardware. There's a box equivalent to your body. Inside the computer box is a power supply representing your heart. Inside your computer box is a big chip with hundreds of little wires coming out of it called CPU, Central Processing Unit. That CPU inside, by the way, if you look inside your box, you don't even see it. All you see are the cooling fins attached. So if you look inside your computer box and you see something with a bunch of cooling fins, that device is the CPU chip, the Central Processing Unit. Obviously, that represents your brain, physical brain. Also, inside that box is, mostly we call it hard disk. It's a rectangular unit. Inside this rectangular unit called hard disk are several really thin platters that are spinning. They're called disks. So there are a bunch of they're like a sandwich of these platters, and they're spinning, and it's on those spinning platters that all the data gets stored. Memory. There are also memory chips inside the computer. So there are memory chips inside the computer, short-term memory, and there are these spinning platters, hard disk, long-term memory. Just as our brains have short-term memory and long-term memory. By the way, neuroscientists have determined that short-term memory and long-term memory are physically in different parts of our brain. Similarly, inside your computer, short-term memory is in one location, chips. Long-term memory is in another location on these platters. Now, here's an interesting observation. The hard disk in your computer contains many gigabytes of data, billions and billions of bits of data. Your hard disk inside the computer weighs less than a pound, quite small. Tell me, when you load all of this hundreds of gigabytes of data onto that hard disk, does it become heavier? So you get your computer without any software installed, then you install all the software onto that hard disk. When you install all the software, does that hard disk become heavier? Isn't that interesting? We're making a distinction between that which is physical, stula, the hard disk, and that which is non-physical, the data, which is sukshma. Notice, no one would say that data and programs don't exist. They do exist on your computer's hard disk, but they exist as non-physical entities. This is sukshma sharira for the physical body. Just as the software and data exist in your computer as non-physical entities, in the same way, the sukshma sharira composed of these 17 parts, the 5 kinds of prana, the 5 sense organs, the 5 organs of action, your mind and your intellect, all of these exist within your physical body as non-physical realities. They have no weight, they have no dimension, they absolutely exist, but they exist as non-physical entities. Now, this metaphor has more applications. Have you ever purchased a new computer? When you got the new computer, you had a lot of documents on documents and software on your old computer, and you wanted to transfer the documents and software from your old computer to your new computer. How did you do that? What you did not do is you didn't physically take the memory chips and hard disk out of the old computer and install them in a new computer. By the way, that would be the equivalent of transplanting someone's brain from one body into another body. That's not done. It's not necessary to do that with your computer. You didn't transfer the hardware, you transferred the software. The programs and data that were on your old computer were transferred into your new computer. Can you see where this is going? We're talking about reincarnation. What happens in reincarnation is that the sukshma sharira, that contains the equivalent of the programs and documents, gets detached from the prior physical body when that physical body dies. And according to the laws of karma, that sukshma sharira is driven by the force of karma to acquire another physical body. And just like the term they use is you load software and documents into a computer, in the same way your sukshma sharira got loaded into your physical body at the time of your conception. So at the time of conception, your body began to take form, and that physical body taking form in your mother's womb was invested with your sukshma sharira, or to use the computer terminology, the embryo or fetus was loaded with the sukshma sharira, the subtle body that had left the prior dead body and had traveled and became associated with the new physical body. This describes transmigration. This describes reincarnation. So notice, an old computer gets thrown away, the software and documents get transferred into the new computer. It's quite a nice metaphor for reincarnation. Now we'll finish this metaphor. By the way, we're not going to make it to the 3rd verse. We'll see that in our next class. But this metaphor is so nice, it's worth spending this time on. Where the metaphor concludes is to describe the relationship of Ātma. So we're talking about sthula sharira, your physical body, sukshma sharira, that which enlivens your physical body, and then Ātma, the consciousness which pervades your physical body, the consciousness which makes your mind and thoughts and emotions known to you. The metaphor very nicely covers this final feature, Ātma. And that is, suppose you have a brand new computer and all the software and programs and data and documents have been loaded into the computer and it doesn't work. Nothing happens. You turn it on and off, nothing happens. You hit Control-Alt-Delete, nothing happens. The computer is dead. What is the problem with the computer? You neglected to plug it in. computers require electricity to run. This is a third factor. There is physical, there is the hardware, there is software, and there is also electricity required to make that computer function. In the same way here, we have a sthula sharira, physical body, sukshma sharira, subtle body that enlivens the body. There has to be a third factor. That third factor, by the way, don't confuse it with karana sharira, which we'll talk about in our next class. We're not talking about that. The third factor we're talking about now is Ātma, consciousness. The hardware and software will only function in the presence of electricity running through that computer. In the same way, this sthula sharira and sukshma sharira will only function in the presence of consciousness, Ātma. We'll see the third body, karana sharira, in our next class. Om sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhavet, asato ma sadgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityor ma amritangamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Tat Sat.